Society is plagued with anxiety because society is unforgiving. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this video, and I'm just going to get straight to the point here. Welcome to the winning team. Also, winning team members, welcome back. Now, I want to talk about this because I get so frustrated with the state of the world. You guys know this. Particularly with modern Western society, because there are all these things that we do that inadvertently cause the same problems we then complain about. And this is one of them. Society is highly unforgiving. So what do I mean by that? I mean, if you found out to have done something at any point in your life, right? And it could be, right, that, especially now with the internet, which again is something I think a lot of people from older generations don't realize, the pressures on us, especially those of us who were kids and would not have known better as kids and were not being supervised as kids, that things could come back in 20 years because how are we supposed to know, right, when we're on the internet at like age 7? But anyway, now we live in a time where everything from whenever can always come up, and people can always remind you of your past because your past is for everyone. In the past, the most people that would probably know are people in your local area, your little town and whatever. Now the whole world can have access. I'm going somewhere with this, right? And it was everything from, I'll give you the first example of the first person that comes to my mind when I think about this, right? Actually, let me not go there just yet. It could be anything from something you said as a kid, coming back up again, all the way up to something you did 10 years ago that you've actually grown from. The fact is, people have decided, they've now labeled you off of something that's happened once, right? You cheated 10 years ago. Once a cheat, always a cheat, right? Once a cheat, always a cheat. You said something people perceive as racist. You're racist. How did you not know when you were 4 years? Well, how did you not know at 12 years old that saying X, Y, and Z that only became racist in like the last 5 years was going to be racist in 2025? And that's what breeds the anxiety, because now there's this level of perfection that everyone's expected to reach this level of perfection constantly. If you make even a mistake unknowingly, let alone if you did something knowingly, unknowingly, people still won't forgive you. They'll be like, oh, you should have somehow known. How? That for me is wild. And when people make certain statements like, when I was 10, I would have known this, when I was 15. Dude, you're 40 and you still don't know better about a lot of things. You're 50, 60, you're 30, 20, you still don't know better about a lot of things. And in fact, if your thoughts, even your daily thoughts if all of our daily thoughts were posted as bulletins somewhere, we'd all be screwed and we'd all be getting unforgiven for everything every day, right? But this is what we've normalized. And now I feel it's because of this unforgiving nature that society has become such a hard place to almost exist in, because the level of perfection, the expectation for perfection is now so high that everyone's trying so hard to do what's okay and not to rock the boat and not to color outside the lines and not to make a mistake, that we just can't live anymore. We can't just be, right? We can't just make a mistake and people brush it off. People remind you of something that you did 10 years ago. Oh, like, you know, like we have a lot of times with, oh, this is a perfect example, right? Perfect example. So, you know, I'm a recent person to start watching Tana Mongeau, right? I never really watched her growing up. I was definitely a Trisha Paytas girly. Trisha Paytas is hands down my favorite of all the famous people in the world. And obviously other than Jesus, you guys, but I'm saying like that are alive, that are like considered celebrities, whatever. But anyway, Jesus is a celebrity, I guess though. But anyway, not important. And so, you know, she had this whole situation with TanaCon all these years ago. And I've really started to think about that a lot, because now that I'm like backlogging and watching like when this thing actually happened and what happened afterwards, and how even now as she's moved far onwards, people are still talking about it. People are still bringing it up. It's like, she's never going to get away from it. And this is why we all have so much baggage in the world as well, right? She was whatever age she was. She didn't do the right thing. She had tried her best. People are expecting her to only ever apologize, despite, if you look into the details, there's actually reasons why she was very much led astray by the people that were around her at the time, if we're being honest. Some of the people that were around her. And again, she was vulnerable because of her upbringing. She lacked in wise adults around her and lacked in a stable childhood. So there was a lot of things that came together that didn't help the situation. Nevertheless, whether she knew or she didn't, the point is that happened a long time ago. But people still want to talk about it. Like, people do this with a lot of things. People, and you know who the most unforgiving people will be? The people around you, especially, who've known you since you were younger. This is why a lot of people, the older they get or when they become successful, they stop talking to a lot of people from their past. Because a lot of people from their past will get jealous and will start to just try and bring them back down a couple pegs by reminding them what they were like as a kid or reminding them what they were like 10 years ago. Like, society is so toxic. Like, people don't actually get to move forward. I'll never forget, like, how, I think it was Jenna Marbles was the first. You've seen it in a lot of YouTubers where they even decide, like, oh, I'm going to just delete my channel and come off the internet altogether. Because even if where we should accept the idea of growth and a journey, right? Which I put myself right there in the firing line, because I've said to you guys, I like to just let people go through the journey of my videos. And so people can see what's happened throughout time and how things have changed. But a lot of these YouTubers, people go back and be like, oh my gosh, we never even noticed in January the 2nd, 2010, you posted this video. Oh my gosh. It's like, well, that was 15 years ago. And that person is grown. We've now normalized that everybody's supposed to be perfect at every time, as opposed to normalizing what's natural, which is that we're all on a journey. All our journeys look different. And guess what? We're never going to get everything right anyway. We're all going to die works in progress anyway. But this is why I feel society has so much anxiety, because whether it's online, whether it's in person, the way that you're supposed to do things in any type of situation, there's all of these rules that I didn't know were rules at all. Like, these little tiny societal rules things that people do, that's now starting to give me anxiety, right? I'll give you an example. People talking about, like, having your phone when you're out at a dinner table, or like if you go out on a date or something, and how apparently, I've so discovered, turning your phone upside down means you're hiding something. So now I've got to be anxious about turning my phone upside down. I turn my phone upside down because I'm trying to focus on you. I'm trying to be present in the moment. I'm trying not to be distracted. And you know what I actually hate? When I'm having conversations with people, when they're such a slave to their device that we're in the middle of a conversation, they're in the middle of a sentence, they get a notification, they can't even come back to that once we at least finish the conversation. They have to respond to the message immediately. That's not an emergency. But you're so enslaved to it. I think that's annoying. Just to put that out there. So now I have to be careful about how my phone is. I even told you guys, apparently, if me putting my head behind my ear is considered to be means I'm into certain type of man, specifically, people have decided, or wearing my hair with a middle parting and all this stuff. There's all of these, like, societal rules, and people are so unforgiving. Like, these things I'm mentioning now are trivial, so they're not that big of a deal. Like, as far as, like, if I, said whatever I said, some kind of whatever, all these years back or something. But the point is, this need for perfection constantly, this having to follow these rules that change all the time. Because again, some even words that are now slurs as of today, when I was a kid, were not even seen that way at all. So then people be like, oh yeah, the old fashioned people, they do this, they do that. That's just their generation. Also, it's also just our generation. It's also just our generation being so sensitive to freaking everything. It's also just that as well. And it's so anxiety inducing. We act as if we're trying to be helpful and loving and inclusive and this, that, and the other. It's not doing that. It's making everything and everywhere insufferable to live, because now we have to always be overthinking every tiny little action of every single thing that we do, lest we accidentally use this word or say this to that, whatever we do. Lest we make a mistake. Because then the society ain't going to forgive you about it. They're going to be reminding you down the line. Remember when you did this? Remember when you did that? And it's crazy to me, especially because so many people, that's what I like to say, especially about to Christian folks out there in the world. Just because your sins aren't in 4K doesn't mean that you haven't sinned and have your own skeletons in your closet. Just because the things you've done, while we're out here playing judge and jury for everyone, just because the things that you've done and the mistakes you've made haven't been put out on the internet or not out there for the world to see, doesn't mean you don't also have your things. And that's where the deluded element and just the ugliness of it all comes for me. Because it would just such an ugly characteristic that we have all of this judgment, all of this unforgiveness, as if and this is why the Bible talks about forgiveness, as in, like, God doesn't just tell us to forgive just cause. It's like, who are you to not be forgiving when what is the same forgiveness you're being required to give somebody else is the same forgiveness you yourself need? Because you need that same forgiveness too, buddy. You need that same forgiveness, but baby girl, because you also have your own skeletons in your closet. Like I said, if we were able to post all of your stuff online, if everybody was to hear about what you did and spread rumors about what you did the same way you be spreading other people's rumors, if you were to be held by the same standards, by the standards you're holding others to, let's see just how comfortable you feel. Let's see how much you now want to talk about forgiveness. And this is why, and it's case in point. It's case in point. We saw this literally happen with the whole Brooke Schofield thing on the freaking cancelled podcast. She was there playing judge and jury comfortably for so long, ready to point fingers at so and so and so and so. Now people are upset that she called out. She didn't shun David Dobrik, right? And she said what she said. She said, "Well, now that I've had to deal with going through my own stuff, I'm gonna have to share the forgiveness that I would want shared to me." So again, it's still selfish. You're still selfishly looking at others. You're still focused on yourself. We sit there playing judge, jury. Now she even has anxiety on the show. This is why the Cancer Podcast isn't even as what it used to be now, which I'm still catching up. Like I said, all of this stuff is new to me. I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, you see, now you're affected. Now you have anxiety. Now she's the one sitting there with anxiety, not talking about anything. Can't even read Reddit because I've seen the Reddits. I was reading the Reddit for a while. And she doesn't want to read the Reddit. Why? Because on Reddit, people are like, you can tell she's changed. It's got into her, whatever. Yeah, now it wasn't so fun now when you were the one being judged and you're the one not being forgiven. And some people are saying you're never going to be forgiven. Some people are literally saying she will never be forgiven. There's fans she's lost forever. There's going to be other fans she's now going to also now lose forever with this David situation. And the story goes on. And that's how society is. Society is exactly like that. When you're the one who needs the forgiving, all of a sudden we all want to make sure that forgiveness is a part of it. We all want to tell the other person, oh, they should forgive. Christians are the worst for this. Oh, you need to forgive, you need to forgive, you need to forgive. Because you don't want to be held accountable. But then when you're done wrong and something's done wrong that you're upset about, you now want that person to be held accountable. But then when it's you, you just want to be forgiven. And then we wonder why we're all living in anxiety as a society. And why everybody's facing society. We don't know what we can say. We don't know what we can do. We don't know the right way to do this, the right way to do that. Because now, God forbid you get it wrong. God forbid you get it wrong once. This is why when people act as if God is somehow the most horrific judge and the most toughest whatever, I'm like, you think God for me is a breath of fresh air from this world. God is the most forgiving, the most understanding. God is like, he's like, when you ask for forgiveness, it's gone out of my brain. It's gone. I've forgotten it now. I've let it go. People of today will be like, oh, they'll forgive you. And then if they see any little creeping habits, they'll be like, oh, remember that time you did this? I know you forgave yourself, but maybe just, people are still watching out for it. We're so unforgiving. And then the world becomes a place filled with anxiety because now we're all scared to say anything or to do anything or to rock the boat. This is why I just freed myself of caring about societal norms. I don't care. If you have enough bollocks, you'll say to my face what you have to say, that you don't like what I did or question me, to my face, respectfully. If you're just gonna make assumptions, that's on you, darling, because you haven't asked me nothing. And now you look pathetic and like you're lacking in critical thinking, which is, of course, what the school system taught you, which is why people are not good at things in maths and science, because they don't know how to be critical thinkers and think logically because you've been taught to think illogically. And I say that as a teacher of maths and science, right? That's what you do now. That's not my business. I'm not going to be sitting here in social anxiety, right? I'm not going to be sitting here worried about every single... When I realize that the smallest things, like me turning my phone over just because I actually want to focus on the conversation and I'm not a slave to my device. If I see a message pop up or I hear a message pop up, I might look at it, make sure it's not an emergency, put it back down. I'll respond to you later. I'm at dinner right now with my friend. I'm on a date right now. I don't need to respond to this person. If this person's going to be upset, I didn't respond for 3 hours. You're not an adult, mate. We're not in school. We're not in like, do you know what I'm saying? I have a life to live. If you're making a bunch of assumptions about me because of whatever else, that's your business. I don't care. I'm not subscribing to societal whatevers, because who cares? The rules change all the time anyway. And either way, I'm going to make a mistake whether I try my best or not. Anyways, and guess what? Society's still going to be unforgiving regardless. Society's still not going to forgive. They're still going to remember 10 years down the line. And you know who especially loves to remember and be the most unforgiving types of people? The people that are jealous to see you win. Because they want to bring you down a peg. They want to bring you down a peg. They want to remind you That yeah, you might be something now, but don't forget you're still this. You still did that. That's what the enemy loves to do. That's why the enemy loves labels. That's why I refuse to stand under any label of any type of anything other than Bible-believing, Holy Spirit-filled follower of Jesus Christ. I'm not going to start labeling my mental state. I'm not going to start labeling my actions. No. You're not going to call me this. You're not going to call me that. You're not going to call me. You're not going to title me. Because that's what the enemy loves to do. He loves to give us all these labels. To reduce us just to those labels and find our identity in that. I'm not partaking in that. No, thank you. Respectfully. So I just wanted to make that video because it does really frustrate me and I just get so annoyed. And I'm like, is this really how we are? Like, why are we like this? Like, for real. Like, genuinely. But then I remember it's because this is the world. The world is opposite to God. God is loving, caring, forgiving. The world is the thing that's unforgiving. Look around you. The world is unforgiving. And the world wants to be forgiving when it's you and it's your struggles. When it's the types of things you go through, you want to be the first to talk about forgiveness. And you want to be the first to talk about understanding. But when it's somebody else, you want to be the first to hold them accountable and to never forget and never let them forget either what they did. No matter how much they apologize, no matter if the fact that they did it on purpose or not. You don't want to allow them to have a journey. Everybody's just supposed to wake up and have everything right and do everything right the first time. Guess what? There's only one person that ever did that, and that was Jesus Christ. The rest of us don't have the room to be doing that. But that's why people are filled with anxiety. Because you can't get anything right. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You're always going to upset someone. Whoever's upset is going to do whatever they want to do. And they may just hold that against you for forever. And that's just where you're going to be now. Because that's just how society is. And it's honestly sickening. And on that note, if life's a game, let's play to win. God bless you all. God loves you. I love you. I'll see you in my next one. Goodbye.